Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it last.
It's time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. I'm about to have a conversation with Indushree Rajan. She's a clinical psychologist, an author, and a relationship coach. Now, as a clinical psychologist industry, what is the leading cause of unhealthy relationships and divorce?
Good question. I would have to say two things. One is not living with an understanding of who you are, and communication, not being able to communicate in a way that is honoring of self and honoring of the partner, and you know, real in terms of how it holds the relationship.
In terms of what the relationship?
In terms of how it holds the relationship. In other words, communication oftentimes can is a huge has a huge impact on how deep the relationship is, how
Mm-hmm.
much the relationship grows, or if it's stunted, how well partners may know each other and may have known each other very well and had a great deal of intimacy at one time. But what we have at one time does not necessarily mean it's going to stay that way. And communication and the quality of nature of communication has a huge role in whether we grow together or whether we grow apart, whether we know each other, we continue to know each other, or whether we shift in understanding who we're married to, right?
Okay. So is it then for a lot of persons they're gonna say, but we've been together for some time, we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
What you're alluding to is the fact that people still need to ensure that they stay in a mode of being open to learning more about their partner. Is that what you're saying? And if so,
Absolutely. I mean,
how is that done when more often than not people just get comfortable and say, hey, we've been together, we're in high school together, we're now married. What more is there for me to learn about this person?
that's an important question. I do coaching work with couples, and this is exactly the kind of thing we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nothing happens in a vacuum. Certainly, I think you can say that you're not the same person today that you were in high school. Is that fair? Because
Yes, I
I
would
know that
hope.
I'm not. So, if you're
Mm-hmm.
basing a lifetime relationship with someone based on how if you're basing it on how they were with you in high school, then you've got a problem, because all of us, whether we are conscious of how we change
Mm-hmm.
or not, we change. We are affected by life. We are affected by others. We are affected by traumas, circumstances, all kinds of different things. Money,
Mm-hmm.
whether we have it, whether we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Careers. Oh, my career is taking off. Hers isn't, right? Um, because we whether we navigate life alone or together, we are always in interplay with life, and life changes us, right? So if we are not, working to be connected with our partners day to day, if we're not working to be connected and aware of what our partner's needs are, what our needs are, how our needs may have changed, right? Then this is going to happen. We're going to start to drift away from each other, right? And pretty soon there's a lot more that's going to be in the mix. There's going to be, oh, I'm feeling, disconnected from her. Oh, I'm feeling ignored. Oh, he doesn't think I'm attractive anymore. He doesn't think I'm special anymore. We will fill in the blank with a narrative,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
usually, if we are not aware of who we are, and if we have not been communicating regularly and keeping up with where we are together, then the resentments, the pain, the fear, the anger, all of that starts to shape a narrative. And we start to project that narrative onto the relationship, whether or not it's true, right? Just because you feel it doesn't make it true. The only way that you know whether something is true is if you are in connection and communication with your partner, and that communication grows and changes and evolves as the two of you do, right?
Mm. What then do you say to a couple who, one will say, but I have shared what my needs are, but then I feel as if I have to keep saying the same things over and over again. What's your
Mm-hmm.
response to that? If the person's saying, but I'm trying to be open, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to be transparent, but I don't think it's making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
What's your
Well,
response?
then we need to understand that communication is not just saying what you want. Communication is also, is he or she responding? Do you feel like they're hearing you? If they're not hearing you, if they're not listening, then what is it, how are you, what are you compelled to do? Right? I mean, we can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results,
Same,
right?
right.
Einstein called that insanity. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so if it's not working, if you're saying something and circumstances don't change, then it becomes important to bring that to your partner's attention and see, is your partner aligned with wanting to change? Because clearly you want your needs to be met. Is he or she wanting to meet your needs still? Is he
Mm-hmm.
or she, what are they willing to do to meet your needs if you're not happy? This is where coaching and therapy become really important, right? Because it's changed, it takes two to change a relationship.
Yes.
One person can be doing everything right, or can feel good about what they're doing, but if the other person is not receptive, if they're not willing to change, then circumstances aren't going to change. And the sad truth is, two things that people need to realize. One is that, um, if you married some version of someone, right? We all marry some version of someone. Do we really know everything about someone? No,
Mm-hmm.
we can't. I mean, I believe there's a mystery in life. I believe in the great mystery, and I don't think we can ever truly know everything about someone. But if you have married a version of someone who never really cared about, communication, who never really cared about dating, who never really cared, that's going to be there too in the mix, right?
Yeah.
If you have an aha moment, if you wake up and say, wow, I'm really not happy with our sex life, if that person is not willing to talk to you about it, then that's kind of where it's going to stop,
And yeah.
right? No matter how much you want to change, because when we choose our partners, we we have to be aware of how and from where we're choosing our partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, we go back to that sense of being reactive versus responsive, living consciously or unconsciously,
Interesting.
right? Did you consciously choose your partner? If you did, then there's going to be likely a better chance that you can appeal to this person, right? Because you then, going back to when you dated, or going back to when you were first together, you
Mm-hmm.
maybe were paying attention to what works and what doesn't work, right? I
Yeah.
tell my clients, my singles, all the time, make a negotiable and non-negotiable list, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get so wrapped up in this whole fantasy, and oh, I don't want to be, I want to be swept up, I want to, have it all, I want to do this. Yeah, okay. But what are you gonna what work are you gonna do to put yourself in a position to receive that, right? People don't Things don't just happen magically, right?
Yeah.
The
It takes
movies
work.
tell us so,
It takes
but
work.
it's very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, one of the lines I absolutely hate the most. There's a movie called Jerry Maguire, and he says to the love interest, the main character says to his love interest, "You complete me." No, we should never be. Two halves do not make a whole, not in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship sense,
Mm-hmm.
not for a healthy relationship. You must be whole first. Being whole entails knowing yourself first and really getting practical. Okay,
Yeah.
what is negotiable to me? I mean, yeah, we'd all like to be with a 6'2" cut man. That's great. I think everybody would want that. But let's say that he's 6 feet tall and maybe not in fantastic shape, but he's attractive to you. Is that something you're willing to give on, if
Mm-hmm.
he's attentive and he listens and he's kind and he's all of these other things, right? Or maybe you're not going to negotiate the 6'2". or and the really built, strong guy. Whatever that is, everybody is an individual. You get to choose what your negotiables and non-negotiables are. But it's about being present first to yourself, being
Yes.
present first to what is healthy for you, what
Yeah.
is not healthy for you.
Yeah.
And then you date. And by dating, by the way, I don't mean, sleeping together on the first or second or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. We sexualize and romanticize way too quickly.
True.
Um, it's about really observing and listening and watching,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
people will tell you anything, and they can tell you anything, and they do, but a person will show you who they are by how they behave over time, right?
Yes.
And that's the only
Yes.
way that you have some sense of, okay, now I understand what I'm getting into.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the flip side of this, you could have dated somebody for 2 or 3 years, you could have a fantastic rapport, you could have done all the things right, and maybe you really are happy. I promise you, though, when you get married, you're going to learn things you didn't know. You're going to see things you didn't see, because marriage, I always say that, the three instances in which you learn the most about someone is when you live with them, when you travel with them, and when you raise a child with them. Those
Mm.
are different sides that come out to that person that you think you know really well. So being deliberate about living consciously, knowing yourself, and deliberately dating, that's the key. Hi, I'm Dr. Indushree Rajan, and I'm here with Noreen Daly on the Making It Last podcast. And we're talking about divorce and what are the leading causes for divorce and unhealthy relationships. But we must take a break to hear a word from our partners. So don't go away. We'll be back.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors. Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-877-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-877-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Langdo Language Institute was created to meet your language and communication needs. All of our packages were created just for you. We are passionate about language and dedicated to your success. We offer the CSEC English program, the Study Body program, the Get Ahead with English program, and the Business Communication program. Contact us at 767-285-0938 or email us at landolanguage@gmail.com, because the real question is, how can we help you?
Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life.
Welcome back. I'm Dr. Indushree Rajan, and we're talking about unhealthy relationships, divorce, and what are the contributing factors to both. Let's continue the conversation.
You said two things at the beginning, so I wanted you to talk about a little bit about the first one, because we really unpacked the communication. What was the very first one you said? What was the leading cause of unhealthy relationships and divorce? You said
Not
one thing,
knowing
and you said,
yourself.
okay, right.
Mhm. Yeah.
How easy is it for someone to know themselves? Industry.
Well, I think everybody's different, right? I think that there's so many moving parts to that. For example, somebody with a trauma history is focused on surviving, right? Knowing yourself is too difficult, too scary. Perhaps it's too painful. So what are you going to do? You're likely going to be focused on survival. You're going to be trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead so that you can stay alive. You know, that's one end of the spectrum. Another end of the spectrum might be someone who's lived and who's had the good fortune of being with very loving, kind, communicative, compassionate, supportive parents, right? And living in a healthy family context where you not only do you know yourself, you're very comfortable with who you are and you get to grow up that way. That's a very rare instance, by the way. I mean, most of the time I find that people fall somewhere in the middle
Mm-hmm.
where, I think that it becomes important to take inventory of who do I think I am? Who do I know who I am? Be curious about things that you notice about yourself, right? This is where coaching and therapy can be very
Mm-hmm.
powerful because you're in a space where there is no investment. A good therapist, a good coach is not going to be personally invested in the work that you're doing. Why? Because they want you to be you. They don't want you to be some version of who they say you should be. That's typically what happens. I mean, people say, oh, I don't need therapy because I have friends. People say, oh, I don't need coaching because I have my parents. But guess what? They already have an image of who you are. They
Yeah.
already have an expectation tied to who you should be or who you are. So it's not going to allow you the space and the honesty to really have a mirror held up for you, because you're going to see things if you're being
Mm-hmm.
honest with yourself, if you're introspecting in earnest. You're going to see things that disturb you. You're going to see things that hurt. You're going to see things that you don't like. But the trick is to not reject those things, but rather learn how to hold those things without judgment, positive or negative, and learn how to come back to yourself in compassion and acceptance, because change cannot happen if we don't accept what
Mm-hmm.
is. And most people live out some version of not accepting what actually is true. They try to put a mask on it. They try to pretend and oh, that's not really who I am. I'm this. Other people are chameleons. They'll change depending on the person and the circumstance, right? So being willing to hold the truth of who we are, but being willing to look at it from a space of curiosity rather than judgment. If your car breaks down and you need a new carburetor, what do? You go to
Mm-hmm.
the shop and you get a new carburetor. You don't sit there and talk about how stupid this carburetor is for a half hour before you go get the carburetor. You just fix it.
Yeah.
But what do we do with ourselves? I mean, my God, we
Mm-hmm.
have so many narratives and judgments around who we should be, who we used to be, who we can't be, and all of this kind of thing. So that's where we start, is being curious about who we are and being willing to introspect. I think it all starts there.
Mm-hmm. How did you get to this point where you're able to just, well, yeah, how did you get to this point? Because I sense that, yes, this is something you do professionally, but I sense that you do this for yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, full disclosure, I'm a complex trauma survivor myself, and I've had to do a lot of my own healing work to
Okay.
get to a point of accepting myself in terms of who I am as a person, what my body is, how my body looks and feels, what how the world has seen me and what the world tells me I am versus what my culture or my family might tell me I am.
Mm,
I've had to navigate all of those kinds of things. And it's not because, I mean, yeah, I'm a doctor, that's true, but it's not the doctorate that makes me effective at what I do.
mm-hmm.
I've walked that path, right? I understand it. I know what it is to move from a space of low self-esteem and pain and trauma to feeling empowered and feeling good about myself and having real joy about my life. That's not something that just happened, and that's what people need to understand. We live in a world where people are looking for the magic bullet. They're looking for the next quick fix. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for whatever it is, whether it's money or sex or relationship or whatever it might be. But the truth is, this is work. This is about healing the wounds that have, perhaps been festering for a long time. This is about learning how to be honest with yourself and accepting the answers that come. This is about loving yourself, even if you feel like nobody else does. This is about, feeling the fear and feeling the insecurity, but taking a step out anyway and doing it anyway. We live in such a reactive world, and it's so tumultuous and so oftentimes really shifted by emotional states. But we are not the sum total. The sum total of who we are is not how we feel. The
Yeah.
sum total of who we are is not how we think. It's a combination of so many things. As I said earlier, we are mind, body, spirit, soul. We are all of those things. But usually each of us hang out more in one area than another. You've met those people who live at the gym and their whole life revolves around
About the gym,
how
yeah.
many ounces of this and what kind of protein powder and all that. You have met people who are really living from their head. They're stuck in their head. Everything is about their head, but they're disconnected from the body. They're disconnected from spirit, right? Then you have people who want to meditate on a hill for hours a day, and they have no connection to relationship or to the world. They're just lost in this world of the spiritual. But that's all life out of balance, right? To be able to live a life in balance is to be integrated. I believe that all of this work of self-realization, self-actualization is about understanding the various aspects of who we are and aligning to all of them in balance, right? We need to integrate. Otherwise, we're going to be living out some version of who we are, but we're probably not going to be happy, or we're probably going to have something that doesn't feel right.
Excellent note to end on. Thank you so much for sharing, Indushree. It was a pleasure.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And, I am really happy to be here today. I think this work is really important. And so I encourage your listeners to take that step forward. Start it.
Yeah.
So.
No, thank you. Thank you. This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly. Until next time.
Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and